André Rieu had an enormous fortune. It could compete with rock legends' castles. Sold out arenas and royals in every global region, but behind all the dazzling lights, gorgeous outfits, and there were standing ovations and a narrative. André established an empire that no one anticipated. $40 million in classical music value alone, which is unprecedented even for the hottest pop stars right now, but why would this enormous money one day become the primary cause of the tears that fell his closest family members' faces? Wasn't wealthy when he was a child, but he was merely a little child who enjoyed music. His father was the Rieu Symphony's conductor. He was surrounded by music because of the orchestra constantly present in his life, yet André was aware. From the beginning, he refused to sit in a stuffy musical hall. He softly desired something farther away, louder, and larger. More thrilling, and he wanted everyone to applaud, sing, leap off their chairs, and André gradually incorporated that into. In 1987, André made a bold move that would either wreck him or turn him into a legend. He established the Johann Strauss Foundation indefinitely. Orchestra, not a little band. Softly for courteous cheers, but a scintillating entertainment in full force. Powerhouse that began with barely 12. The number of musicians rapidly increased to above 60. Artists from all over the globe. André performed more than only classical music. He performed waltzes in concerts full of ranging from Strauss tunes to the Macarena, and it was well received by the audience. Tickets were flying off the shelves, and shortly after, wasn't merely packing theaters with filling stadiums and arenas to capacity. Global funds rushed in more quickly than. By the early 2000s, nobody anticipated André wasn't only prosperous, he was out selling well-known performers like Bruce and AC/DC. Coldplay and Springsteen's performances made. His DVDs flew off, and he made millions every night. Shelves in every nation where fans went. Thousands of miles at exorbitant costs and cheered like though they were at a rock show. André's business was flourishing, and his fortune skyrocketed, making him the wealthiest violinist on the planet. But André didn't discreetly conceal his money in. Instead, he poured money into the bank. 2008 saw the creation of ever larger spectacles. He put nearly everything he possessed at risk by creating an astounding $30 million stage at Schönbrunn for his performance. Vienna's palace appeared to be a fairy tale story encased in opulent gold crystal. Explains exactly what the fans had hoped for. Seeing that fairy, but from André Rieu. Story nearly cost him everything. The expense drove him to the brink of bankruptcy, almost erasing decades of overnight profits, and they had taken chances previously, but this one almost broke him fully, but he wouldn't give up gradually. André ascended backstage after each performance, settling his obligations and transforming his demonstrates even greater achievements within. He was wealthier than ever for a few years, returning with greater strength and intelligence. He began doing concerts all around the world. Movie events that webcast performances in theaters over the world, earning millions more. Fans unable to travel to witness his live performance rushed to theaters, paying top dollar to take in the thrill of the huge. The richness of screen. André didn't just recuperate it, then double it, then treble it, attaining an astounding $40 million by 2023, but André failed to accumulate wealth. His family was there by themselves from the Beginning with his wife, Marjorie, who was far more than his romantic relationship. The costumes were designed by Marjorie. Select locations and organize the spectacular stage settings that rose to fame. Together, they created every show in the globe. Unforgettable production of entertainment. Empire that evolved into a real family. Pierre, their son, even stepped into the business, assuming a significant role that turns into vice. André Rieu Productions president, transforming the entire process into a musical of sorts. Dynasty André's performances were renowned. However, he never forgot where he came from. In a fortress constructed in Maastricht. Yes, a real castle in 1452, but this wasn't typical mansion, it was the fabled location of the Threes d'Artagnan. Musketeer's last meal was before dying in combat, something André had dreamed of. Possessing it since he was a child, and now he spent millions remodeling each inch, transforming it into a paradise of dreams. Brimming with precious artwork. Gardens and chandeliers that were appropriate for. It seemed like something from a fairy tale. A film, but André was experiencing it all the time. Despite all of this luxury, André didn't slow down and continued to grow his performances that travel continuously from Europe and America to each of Japan and Australia. His audience rose each year as his tours expanded. Is larger and his wealth has increased. Was no longer merely a musician, he was a superstar, a worldwide occurrence whose brand became unstoppable. Despite everything, a money-making machine has not yet. André retained one of the sparkle and elegance. Unexpected baking habit during the 2020 lockdown with cancelled performances. And the disappearance of millions in ticket sales. André did something unexpected overnight. He began preparing and sharing cakes. It wasn't ostentatious with neighbors or extravagance, just plain human decency. Subtle reminder that beneath the enormous empire was a man who continued to cherish neighborhood and basic pleasures, but there was more about André's wealth and empire. Relied on him to perform continuously and in 2010, he became ill with a serious ear infection. Almost everything collapsed once more, shocking the physicians. Hadn't become ill sooner considering how. Requesting that his schedule be adhered to for the first time, his family understood how. This fortune was all they had, and it was delicate. Constructed relied only on André's one cancelled tour, one illness, and one health. Might immediately cost them millions of dollars. There was a lot of strain, but André recuperated and continued on, unwilling to. Determining to keep the song playing, slow down. And the money coming in, but the tension expanded as admirers noticed a beaming André. Executing with ease behind the situations that the family found difficult. Overseeing a business empire valued in tens of millions are at risk, yet no one was aware of it. Every amazing performance was a risk. Spending millions on venues and set designs. Any failure involving artists and marketing might jeopardize everything that we've constructed. Then, that revealed yet another secret. Not all of André's wealth came from concerts. In private, he had been constructing a massive, investing millions in a real estate portfolio. Into upscale real estate in Europe. Few fans were aware of his Rieu Castle. Recognized the size of his property. Rieu Castle had turned into an empire. It was not just any old mansion, it had erected in 1452 with a severe history linked. It was originally Charles Bat's. The actual Castelmore d'Artagnan. Sources of inspiration for the renowned. The Three Musketeers. Musketeers, however, when André initially noticed this place wasn't particularly opulent, he entered for the first time at the age of 6. For lessons on the piano, and believe me, it wasn't. At first glance, the location appeared gloomy, crumbling and a little unsettling. Definitely not where you would have thought. Live your life to the fullest. Decades later, and that the eerie old castle turned into the gleaming. The center of André's empire was changed from a depressing ruin into a magnificent fairy. His Mrix tail-like estate. André encircled the castle with the luxury items that most of us only see on. His Stradivarius violin is taken by Netflix. This wasn't just any old instrument. Back in 1692 by Antonio Stradivari. In 2018, André paid an incredible $7 for it. This was his third £1 million. The first one, Stradivarius, was the third. Stradivari's property, which was owned since 1667. Early pieces, but playing them was challenging. Even yet, it's difficult. André turned some of his recordings into gold recordings. Top albums, possessing numerous several $1 million. Not only did André enjoy playing the violin, but he was competing in a different league. André's extravagant way of living continued beyond tools. He gained command of every aspect of his performances, including his orchestra's attire included those stunning dresses that his female André, a musician, created, each one personally motivated by historical individuals such as Empress Elizabeth of. These gowns were no joke in Austria. Roughly £3,000 each, then multiply that by numerous musicians on each tour, and it begins to explain why André once declared bankruptcy as a result of his stage designs. Yes, bankruptcy, remember that? It's crazy. He made a stage set for his performances in 2008, Vienna was the ideal. A duplicate of Schönbrunn Palace that comes with gold carriages, actual ice rinks, and fountains, as well as dancers in lavish ballrooms. Sounds fantastic, but great things come with a price. André lost an incredible $34 million. He didn't merely construct it. He constructed 3 distinct traveling setups. Them scorching across the world. Money at an incredible rate. It was dazzling and brilliant, but it almost ended him, and he eventually sat down with his bank manager, talking about what they could remove in order to resolve the massive debts, but he managed to make it through that emergency and recovered even. This man's strength made him invincible, or was. At home, everything appeared to be calm, comfortable, even typical, at least as typical as living in a genuine castle. Might have been André's spouse. Since 1975, Marjorie has been with them. Had 2 kids, Pierre and Marc. The castle was beautifully adorned with family photos. Walls recollections of more carefree times when André was just getting started, but even his family was crucial to his. The scripts for Empire Marjorie were written by adding lyrics to the music at his shows. Has had an impact on millions worldwide. Their youngest son, Pierre, took the lead. Time serving as André's vice president. Family meals produced by Rieu Productions may have appeared to be straightforward gatherings, but they were actually covert board meetings. At every meal, family and business coexist. However, beneath all of this glitzy lifestyle and mouth-watering sweets from André's early years Wasn't very happy growing up in a MRI of a small, packed house with 5 siblings were difficult, and his father was conducted an orchestra, but failed to show him much love. His mother is much more resilient. André thought that they were envious of his inherent ability, as within weeks of. At 5, he picked up a violin and began to play. He escaped the difficult circumstances in a lovely way. Via music, yet the wounds persisted, pushing him in the direction of more success, more recognition, more excess that makes him want to prove himself. Was evident when André first began. In 1978, he established his own. There were only 12 musicians in the original ensemble. Money was spent on tiny eateries and weddings. They were barely observed by close audiences, occasionally unable to even look up from their dinner, and you're almost done with the music. Entirely even making jokes about opening a. Instead, picture André in a pizza place. At the table, Rieu is serving pizza Paganini, holding a violin, but fortunately for millions fans all over the world, he continued to perform music in. In 1987, André reorganized his team, producing. Currently, the Jens Strauss Orchestra is well known. Admired Johann Strauss in the first waltz king, who demonstrated that artists could be business as well. The Strauss masterminds had 5 orchestras sprinting. At the same time, you're content with one enormous orchestra, currently the biggest worldwide, privately held orchestras. Traveled all over, from crowded stadiums to throughout Europe to completely fill arenas. The triumph of Asia and America burst without warning during a memorable soccer match in. When Ajax played Bayern Munich in 1995. The final of the Champions League, and André shrewdly purchased a minute of live television coverage during halftime to highlight his Ajax's music score shortly before halftime. Millions watched André with perfect timing play Walt Nunu by Shostakovich live on. The following week, he sold over 200,000 TVs. CDs that immediately launched him from musician to worldwide superstar. A timely soccer goal was altered. When success arrived, everything for him. Millions of dollars were spent into even greater fantasies. Into creating his concerts the greatest. Amazing things that could happen with fake snow. Balloon drops, extravagant ball dresses each time. The show was an extravagant celebration. Renowned for insisting on serving actual champagne throughout shows, even though he didn't personally consume it. To maintain authenticity, fans adored the. Critics of spectacles raised their eyebrows, but André desired sincerity, so he didn't care. Despite everything, no quick cuts, no pretending. André's use of luxury kept things relevant. He gathered and taught Tintin comics Spanish during the lockdown by reading mystery fiction and continuing to cherish a basic toy truck from his early years. This truck was more than simply a plaything, it was a remembrance of easier times when he and his Robert, his brother, constructed automobiles out of scrap old wheels and wood, but André wasn't. Only a few affluent collectors remain. He used to have his eyes fixed firmly on the future with his larger orchestra. Officially the largest than any before. Earth's own orchestra with 60 musicians along with a horde of support personnel. André had much more ambitious intentions. Wasn't content to be the world's best classical superstar or 40 millions of albums were his goal. Something that had never been done by a musician. Previously, André intended to perform live on Yes, you heard correctly, the moon. Moon André wasn't just kidding, he was actually had an intense conversation with a billionaire, Richard Branson, regarding the construction of a hotel. Branson is well known on the lunar surface for his ambitious ambitions promised to complete it. And André, he had every intention of taking his huge orchestra of Jens Strauss up there. All of the instruments needed performed the world's. The first space concert sounded incredible. Until you recalled that this was the individual who outsold classical music. Metallica and Beyoncé, if anyone could. It was André who made a lunar concert possible. Rieu, but how did André get to this point? Degree of extreme achievement and aspiration. Unlike the majority of classical groups who rely on schools or wealthy backers, André constructed his orchestra all by himself back in. He had virtually little in the late 1980s, simply a few musicians and a crazy dream. Who had faith in him, and he took enormous chances. From the beginning without any sponsors or. He spent every cent of the government's assistance. He earned money from CDs and ticket sales. Returning to the orchestra today. It cost him to run this enormous operation $1 million or more each month without even accounting for the cost of touring. That meant that every show had to be sold out. And all albums have to be #1. Otherwise, everything would fall apart. André housed roughly 110 people overnight, permanently employed by him from lighting technicians to musicians and cooks, and an additional 100 independent contractors who oversaw marketing, travel, and logistics. Globally, it was more than just a business. Was a family that was his second family. Traversed the world together. Massive stage setup and breakdown. Takes place in arenas ranging from Mexico City to. Each city in Sydney needed 9 massive trucks loaded with costumes and lights. Equipment, instruments, and props for his crew. Worked constantly, frequently constructing the stage. Shredding it after starting from scratch at 7 a.m. Immediately following the 3-hour performance. Completed at midnight each day. The performance seemed magical to the audience, but in the background, it was diligent effort. André managed a tight ship, forget about rockstar antics. Crazy parties that his group went on. Their own cooks to consume nutritious food, and André himself napped prior to each. To stay fresh, he knew that one concert, a poor performance, one sleepless night could harm his reputation and incurred millions of dollars after. André insisted on attending every show. Not wild, but enjoying with his musicians. Champagne parties with only fine wine and informal conversations that went beyond business. For André, this was the passion of his life. An unwavering work ethic paid out handsomely. Even more amazing were André's album sales. In the age of digital music and streaming, Universal Music, his label, had been together with him for more than 20 years. And the collaboration resulted in astounding. 20 years later, André sold more than 40 million albums worldwide. Typically only used by pop stars, not violinists, and in spite of forecasts that, despite the death of DVDs, customers continued to purchase millions of them annually, in particular ones captured on camera during his renowned. He recorded these Maastricht summer concerts. Annual performances, which were modified. Fans eagerly snapped them after thorough inspection, confirming André's conviction that his real content was always preferred by the viewers. They could grasp André in their hands. Was not just a fantastic pianist but also a master entertainer who was fully aware of What his followers desired, he consistently created themed CDs such as his well-known collection of movie themes that featured enormous smashes like My Heart Will Go On. André said that he didn't write much, preferring to take original music. People adored classics and rearranged them, putting his own unique spin on this recipe never failed, and every album turned into a bestseller that fueled his business and making certain that each musician and crew member received my monthly salary on schedule. However, at this magnitude, success wasn't simple to keep up and are often confronted with massive pressure to maintain seat occupancy and selling documents without contributors or sponsors. Each choice he made had enormous hazards that he couldn't afford to delay down, even in the midst of a worldwide pandemic. When the concerts ended, André changed course, preparing pastries for his neighbors and community, boosting his morale, and he made use of the downtime to stay connected, to organize even more ambitious undertakings like his ambitious film screening honoring his 75th birthday in The Dream Continues, published in 2025. Event included previously shown songs from André's international tours, performed in theaters all over the world. This was a large celebration of his life's achievements. Amazing trip from a child's fantasy in Rieu to a worldwide figure that is revered by millions. Of André never concealed the truth, the hard work that led to his remarkable rise, discipline, and taking chances that no one else does. Dared to challenge Edgar, his Jewish father-in-law. KMAN had a profound impact on him through his 300 vinyl records, exposing André to music that he had never heard prior to these recordings, which influenced his style that makes his performances approachable to millions of people who never thought they would adore classical music. Compositions such as Hava, a Jewish klezmer song called Nagila, became enormous hits at André's performances. YouTube presentation of this classic garnered more than 14 million views on its own. André performed everywhere, including in Israel, where standing ovations were given to him, singing well-known regional tunes like Jerusalem in. Despite all of this achievement, André Gold never forgot his origins. He celebrated his 75th birthday in style, arranging a huge boat party that set sail through Maastricht, his hometown, with his global fans of the complete orchestra on board. Participated by attending movie screenings, witnessing incredible performances from decades of André's iconic performances. André created something that no one had anticipated. Perhaps a huge private orchestra, global recognition, and a fortune so substantial that made his family anxious as well as proud.